All right, all right, all right.
Whoop, whoop. Is everybody here for the district grant seminar? Good. Everybody's muted, so I'll take that as a yes. Just quick housekeeping before we get started. Please add the name of your club after your name in the right-hand side where there's participants listed, and also put your name and your club in the group chat, because that way at the end of this session, Tim can copy all of that out so that we can give you credit. A lot of you are attending this seminar because you want your club to be eligible in order to apply for a grant. So make sure to do those things and we will make sure you get credit. From the content that we did yesterday afternoon. So if you came yesterday afternoon, you have met the requirement. If you have additional questions, maybe that were generated from yesterday's call, then I will definitely leave time at the end. I'm going to try to not go through everything so breathlessly, because I think that kind of, when I'm talking, that winds me up a little bit. So I'll try to be a little more paced and slow, and I appreciate your patience. So here we go. Let me scroll through all these things. So for those of you who this is the first time you've been on a grant seminar call, I'm going to be covering grants on DAC-DB, which is the way that we accept documentation and the way that you report all of your stuff. I'm going to show you a real-world example of a club who's done a grant in the past. I'm going to provide some key takeaways, things that you want to keep in mind when you're submitting your grant application. And also I'm going to provide you with some important dates. I know that one of the questions that usually comes up is, how do I get a copy of this presentation? Well, there will be a link at the very end of this presentation that'll show you where you can download it from DAC-DB. And I'll also copy that link into the chat window kind of once I've gone through it. I'll do that at the very end as well. So let's get started. And welcome everybody. My name's Jonathan Fleeter. I'm the district grants chair, and you know, we've talked about sports teams in some of our previous sessions, and so you should know about me that I was born in Tallahassee and I'm an alumni of Florida State. That my family's from Columbus, Ohio, and so there's Buckeyes in my blood. My wife is from Michigan, Kalamazoo, Michigan, and so she roots for Big Blue. But since I was a kid, I was a big fan of the Gators. So I'm a member of the Gator Nation, and whenever we get together, I cheer for the beer. My favorite beer is Southern Tier Warlock, if you ever want to get me a special gift. It's good stuff if you haven't had it, if you like heavy beers. So anyway, on to grants. So as I talked about earlier, you're going to need to get access to DAC-DB. If you don't know what DAC-DB is, it's an online tool that the district's made available to clubs where we can track attendance, where we can keep lists of our members and do a lot of other things like send out bulletins. We also use it as the way for submitting all of our grant information and tracking all of our grant information. As questions come up, I should point this out too. I'm going to stop periodically so that we can ask questions about each of the chunks of information I'm going through. So unless it's an emergency and you really need to interject, please wait until we get to that point to ask your questions.
And Jonathan, I'll be monitoring the chat room. So if
Great.
you want to pose any questions, and then when you stop, I'll ask those.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So first thing, you go to dacdb.com, you put in your username, your password, and your club number, and then you click log in. If you have forgotten your password somehow, just go ahead and click on that forget password button, and they will send it to the email address that you're registered under for your club. Once you've put in that information and logged in, you're going to come to a dashboard. And this is the district homepage. Yours may look differently depending on how your account's set up, but this is what I see when I come in. What you want to do next is you want to click on the district tab, which is along the top. And then pretty straightforward. These are the different functions that you can do in DAC-B. The one you want is district grants, which is right there. Click on that, and that'll bring you to the overview. Now, each year, there's slightly different rules depending on what the foundation sends down. So the next thing you need to do before you submit your grant is you need to select the correct year. Here, you see that it's 2019-2020, because that's the year we're in. But that's not the year that you want to submit your grant for. You want to submit your grant for 2020-2021. So what you're going to do is you're going to change the org year. There's a button in the right-hand corner. You click that, and that is going to bring up a pop-up. And that pop-up allows you to pick different years. So click the down arrow. Once you've done that, scroll up to 2020-2021, select that, and then click the Change Org Year button, and that will assign your grant application to the correct year, which is the upcoming year. So when you're on this screen, you want to read through all of the requirements that are there. One of the things you see highlighted, which I was just told about this morning is changing, is May 15th. Typically, the deadline to submit your grant application is April 30th. But with what's gone on with COVID, there's been some changes from the foundation that have come down. Initially, they extended the deadline to May 15th as the time when you would need to submit your application. And I just got word this morning that we've extended it to June 1st. So if you have a grant that is eligible to receive funding, matching funding from DDF, then you have until June 1st to submit it. And that's different than what I shared yesterday. So just take note of that. The deadline is June 1st. So after you've read through all of the information there, you've confirmed that you're in the correct year, it's time to enter your grant. So before we do that, are there any questions from anyone about navigation or clarification for how we actually get to this point?
I don't see any questions in the chat box at this time.
Okie doke. So we will now create a grant. And what you want to do is you want to click on, well, sorry, I had a circle point. As you can see at the bottom, there aren't any grants approved yet. So as those are submitted and put in, that'll be populated. And I had my note there. So the deadline's on 6/1. So you want to click on Club Grants View so that you can enter the information needed for the grant. And here I have South Point because that's my club. The button you want to click to start your grant request is in the upper right-hand corner. Sometimes people miss it because they're looking at that blue bar that has individual information. So just above it, you want to click that button so you can start creating your grant. And this first section is where you put in kind of the bread and butter of it. One of the things that you want to make sure is keep the project description here down to 250 characters or less. There's actually a more expanded section under the application tab, which we'll get to, where you dig into the nitty-gritty of each aspect of your grant, things like sustainability and whatnot. But in this description, try to keep this short and straight to the point. Imagine that somebody who isn't from where you're from, who doesn't know about your community or your Rotary Club, who doesn't know about the need that's there, is going to be reading this application and evaluating it and trying to decide whether what you're asking for will be used effectively and if it's the best use of the money. So try to be succinct and clear, and always follow the four-way test.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Let me just ask a question. Can you say again what you were referencing with June 1st? Can you repeat
Sure,
that?
I sure can. So typically, district grant applications are due April 30th. But because of COVID, we have gotten the heads up that we are able to accept grant applications after that date. And initially, the date given was May 15th. I just heard this morning that that has been extended. So instead of May 15th, the deadline is now June 1st.
So let's time out on that, Jonathan. I'm not sure where you heard that, but that is not correct. The
Oh.
deadline is, as it's stated on the website, the deadline is May 15th.
Got it. Okay. Well, then I've gotten some texts, and I don't know.
Please
who they're
make
from,
sure
but
that you respond to any of those individuals that were asking that the deadline for whether they're COVID grants or standard district grants, the deadline is May 15th.
Okay. So I apologize. I've given out incorrect information. I probably should have verified who sent me this text. So no, May 15th. Apologize. So thank you for bringing that up, Jeanette, because I had no idea who that text came from. I assumed it was one of you guys.
Well, and that's what I said to Art. I'm like, what's that? And he said me the same thing with me. I'm like, okay, well, it didn't come from either one of us. So let's
Yeah, it's whoever's phone number is 904-654-5950.
Oh, Jonathan, that's the awards for Rotary District awards, not for grants.
Oh, okay.
That
Okay.
makes sense. That's for awards.
All right. Well,
Now that everybody is totally confused, let's carry on.
all right. Yeah. So please ignore the 6-1, any reference to June 1st, and apologies for my not communicating clearly and not understanding what that was about. So moving right on, appreciate your patience. From adding the details, the next thing you want to do is you want to notate what clubs are going to be involved. With district grants, we give some weight to whether you're collaborating, because Rotary is a collaborative organization. It's part of why we're in Rotary, is to make a difference and to work with each other. So you don't have to have a collaborating club who's doing your grant, but why not? In fact, there was some feedback from Ken Smallwood yesterday from Orange Park about how there's clubs that have monies that they don't always utilize, or they sometimes have shortages and stuff, and they look for clubs to collaborate with. So if you're thinking about putting in a grant, put out your feelers. If you're the president of a club, or you're the grants, or if you're the foundation chair, or you just happen to be piloting this, get into DACDB and reach out to other clubs and see if anyone is interested in partnering, because that could be a source of additional expertise. It could be a source of funding. You could leverage what you're already doing to a much bigger project. So in this example, I'm showing South Point collaborating with San Jose, which is part of our area, Area 5. And what you do is you basically scroll down to the clubs that are going to be involved in your grant, and you select them, and then you click the double arrow button to move them over to the clubs involved section so that they're there. Next, you want to click on the contacts tab. The contacts tab are the people who, if the share committee who decides on what's going on, who's going to get what of matching funds from DDF, or if the foundation has questions, if anybody has questions about this grant, these are the people who are probably most involved in the grant. They may be the president of your club. They may be, again, a foundation chair, or somebody that's involved in, maybe it's your treasurer, but you want to make sure that you have several contacts. We recommend at least 3. You can have as many as you want, but try to have at least 3 when it comes to your contacts. And I showed how you essentially select the contacts who are going to be on the list, and then you click the double arrow again and move them over like you did with the clubs involved. So next up, you want to click your application tab. This is where you're going to really dig into the weeds a little bit. You're going to talk about sustainability. You're going to talk about how many people are affected, how much is being spent per person. You're going to put in information on where the grant money should come from, should go to. So our district receives a block grant from the foundation, and then that gets divvied out by the share committee, and then money gets sent to the account that you indicate. And you want to have the information of who's going to be receiving that we really recommend that you have a dedicated separate bank account for your grant, because it's a lot easier to show the income flows in and the expense flows out. It makes your bookkeeping a lot easier than having to dig through a lot of GLs of your club or God forbid, a personal account. So recommend you have a dedicated separate account for your grant. Make sure that information's here in the application area. And make sure you also put your start date and completion date. Be realistic. Obviously, your grant needs to be completed by April 1st, even though we've extended the front end to May 15th of when you submit. You're not going to be getting started on your grant until start in September and finish in October. Make sure you put those dates down. If it's something you're not starting until January or February, put down your start. Make sure your end is before April 1st. Then you want to save it so you don't lose all of this information you've entered. And before we go on to adding in the budget and adding in the documents, are there any questions that have come up?
I do not see any questions, but I just want to remind everybody, because I scrolled through the screen, make sure you rename yourself with your name and your club so we can give you credit for attending this session.
Yes.
And I was just going to say that, but I also want to add that if right now everyone can open the chat and just say hello or something. I know some of you have already done that. I just want to make sure everyone opens the chat and just says hello right now. And that way I can have everyone's list, the list of everyone's name.
Thank you, Tim.
Awesome.
And, perfect. And that is Tim O'Donnell. For those who may know Tim, he's from the Rotary Club of Flagler Beach. He will be shadowing with Jonathan this coming year, and will be taking over as district grant chair next year, 2021.
Yep.
And for those that have turned off their camera, left their room, and they're reading the paper somewhere, you may not get credit for this session. So make sure. If you're all good, send it now. Thanks.
All right.
Hey, I'm still here.
We're just going to talk about you, Rich.
All right. So once you've saved, the next step is going to be to enter the budget and documents stuff. You'll notice that on this example, it now has the name of your grant that you put in. So you're now in the system once you've hit that save button. So your budget and documents are really important. The first thing you're going to be adding is income. And you want to include all of your income sources. You're going to include any fundraising that your club is contributing monies from, any monies that are coming from your other involved clubs, and you're going to include your DDF. So I'll show you how to do that. You want to click on the Add Income Source button, and then it'll bring up a pop-up, and you want to designate the club that this funding source is coming from. So since South Point is the lead club in this example, I have South Point selected, and then you want to enter a description. You want to be specific, club fundraising, maybe fundraising from a particular fundraiser there, but you want to kind of identify where that money's coming from, and you want to select other club funding, not DDF requested. The only time you select DDF requested is for the monies that are coming from the district to match the monies that you all are putting up. So I used $500 in this example. You want to click Add, and you'll see it is added under the income items. So once you've done your first one, you just need to do the rest. And so in this example, I selected San Jose, which is a club that's participating. They're doing fundraising, $500, and then other club funding is selected. So I added that. And then last but not least, the grant. So you want to make sure that the grant income is identified as coming from the lead club, and put in your amount. Your amount should be obviously 50% or less of your project. It could be 30% of your project, but it shouldn't exceed 50%. So This example project is going to be a $2,000 project. So we're only asking for $1,000 of DDF, and the DDF requested button is clicked, unlike the others. So you'll see when I click add that causes a little check mark to happen right here. And so it makes it really easy for us to see where that DDF is notated. Next up is adding expense. So similar to income, you click the add expense button. You want to designate the club that's incurring the expense, and you want to put in a clear description. So I put in equipment rental and provide details because you want to be specific. $500, and you'll repeat that for things like signage, things like supplies, whatever. You may have multiple vendors. It's a good idea to list the vendors if you've already got your proposals together, which you probably should before you enter your grant application. And so you can notate where those are coming from so that it's really clear where that money's going to be going. For signage, it used to be that you could only spend up to $500 on branding and signage because we didn't want a grant project to just be a public relations effort. We wanted it to be doing good as well as promoting Rotary. So that has been increased to $1,000. So you can spend $1,000 or less on any signage or branding. The rest should be going to the rest of the project. So in this example, I just put in $250. And once you've done that, click add. Make sure that you provide anything that's there. And also make sure that you don't list any in-kind stuff here. This is really just for cash flow purposes. So money coming in, money going out, things that can be tracked to receipts and invoices, canceled checks. That's what's important that you list in income and expenses. Once you've done that, they should offset. So you should have a zero balance after all of your income and expenses in. Are there any, oh, I see one question, DDF, and it looks like Tim is on it. Are there any other questions before I move into documents? Nope. Okay.
Jonathan, can you go back to the previous page just to see the list of the itemized list of expenses really quick?
Yes, sir.
So adds up to 2,000, right? And you will be requesting $1,000 from the district. Is
Well,
that
less than 1,000.
less than?
So like in this example, I just put in $250 because this is not a actual grant that I'm applying for. But yeah, so if you have like a plaque, or maybe you've got, you know, I know that some of these things can get really expensive, like a bronze, that some of Rotary projects have these big, beautiful bronze signs that are put on them. There's no reason that you can't do that in your, out of your club. The key thing is we can't use any grant money for that. So you need to have that separate from your project so that it's not considered part of your overall project cost, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's a good point of clarification. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? All right. So moving on to documents. When you click on the Documents tab, you'll notice there's several folders: backup, documents, and images. The two that you're most interested in are documents and images. So these are the places where you put all the stuff you're working on, like your MOU and your COI, conflict of interest, memorandum of understanding, your receipts, your invoices, photographs of your canceled checks when a payment's made and the deposit's taken. One of the things that I didn't mention in yesterday's seminar that I want to reiterate, or I want to hammer down on, is that naming your files, you want to make it now alphanumeric only. So that means numbers or letters. Spaces are fine, but please don't put in any percent signs, you know, pound or hashtag signs, at signs, any of that kind of stuff, underscores. Just keep it to letters and numbers. And the reason for that is it can cause issues in DACDB. So please just keep your, whether it's an image, whether it's a PDF, whatever it is that you're putting in there, try to keep it to just alphanumeric so that we don't have those issues. So what you're going to do is you'll see the navigation there, home and documents. If it's a document, then you're going to upload the file into the documents folder. If it's an image, you're going to upload the image into the images folder. We really want to encourage you to take photos, especially like if it's an outdoor space or it's an improvement. Take a picture of what it looks like before you've done anything. And then when you're doing the project and you have members there, you have people in the community there, take pictures of that. Take pictures of the equipment. If you bought equipment, the supplies, take a lot of pictures. And then when you're done with it, take pictures. If you have a ribbon cutting, which you'll see in the example, chronicle that and use it in your social media, because it's important that you leverage this service opportunity into exposure for your club and for your membership. We're always talking about how do you grow membership. One of the things you do is you use things like grants to tell the Rotary story and talk about what you're doing in the community and why it's important for the community to support Rotary and why they should join Rotary. Anyway, off my soapbox. So if you want to upload an image, click on the upload file button, and then it'll browse. You'll have this pop up, and you want to browse to your computer where you have the image that you want to upload. Make sure, again, it's alphanumeric characters only. And then once you've uploaded it, you'll see it right here in the list of images. Same thing happens with documents. So if you need to reference back when something was added, there's actually an entire set of logs that shows that. Once your stuff is uploaded at any point, you want to click Save, because that will make sure that the system links that and connects that with this grant. I brought this window up, which is not in DACDB. This is our Rotary District 6970 Foundation page. There's been a question before, where do I get the conflict of interest form? Where do I get the memorandum of understanding form? This is where you get it. You go to Rotary Foundation 6970.org, and it has additional information here for you to see. It's a public facing page, so literally anybody in the community can see this. So if you have organizations who want to receive funding, you can give them this URL so they can learn more about what we're doing as a district. And in turn, they'll kind of understand what our process is a little more without needing the DACDB access, which they won't have as non-Rotarians. So make sure you download your forms from here. Make sure you print them out, fill them out, and then make sure you upload them to DACDB. Are there any questions about where to find documents, where to upload them, images, any of that kind of stuff?
Jonathan, there was a question that was posed by Casey that Tim answered. Did I hear correctly that the grant request can only be up to a max of 50% of the project cost? Awesome.
Yeah, and Tim's exactly right. So Casey, the assumption is that this, I'm going to give you some more information about that, but the bottom line is yes. So if you have a $10,000 project you're applying for, you can only receive up to $5,000 towards that project. You don't need to ask for $5,000. You may only need $2,000 because you already have $8,000. Maybe it's a 2-club project and you've already got $4,000 from each club, and you just need to bridge the gap with $2,000. Doesn't have to be half of your project, because the assumption is that you're going to be doing the project regardless of whether you get the grant money. this grant money is going to free up other funding that you could be doing other good with. So this is money that's gone up to the foundation through our contributions. It's sat there for 3 years. It's collected interest. They've used that to pay their overhead. They've sent back the block grant to us, and a portion of that is our DDF, which the share committee designates to clubs, and you all get to apply for it, or we get to apply for it, because it's really our money. And now it's just a matter of being good stewards and making sure we do what we say we're going to do. So that's the deal with 50%. That's the ceiling, but you can ask for any amount between that.
Okay, one more question from Kelly. Is there a way to pull a copy of the current application? Nice to review the questions ahead of time and develop the support first before actually completing it. You want to speak to maybe saving a draft of it? And
so boy, I don't know if we've got a PDF version of that, but yeah, what I would suggest is she goes through and I'm sorry, Kelly, I don't know if you're she, but Kelly, what you can do is just start a grant application. You don't have to have all your final stuff in there, but if you go into the grant module and you literally just go through it and copy that page and paste it, you'll have all the same stuff. I'll see if I can get a print ready version made so that that's done already for other clubs, because I'm sure that comes up. But it does change slightly from year to year. So let me make a note and I'll do that.
Jonathan, there is no print ready version.
Okay.
Kelly, you don't submit the grant. You just keep it in draft form.
Okay.
So you could copy and paste the actual questions to a Word doc if you wanted to, but it's just a draft. Can't goof anything up. Just take a stab at it. And if you have open questions, go back to your club and then come back to your draft grant application.
Well, there you go. That works. All right. So continuing, once your documents are uploaded, your images are uploaded, and you're going to be uploading documents and images throughout the process. But for the purposes of this demonstration, the next step before approval is you need to have some signatories. And in order to have people from your club who are going to be accountable and responsible for this happening, you have to set them up. So to do that, you click on the admin button under grant secure files on the left side. And once you click on that, it's going to have a little drop down and you'll see it says club signatures. You need to designate who is going to sign for this grant. Now, they don't have to be the same people who are the contacts for the grant, but they probably should be. They don't have to be the same people who are in today on this call, but they probably should be because they have the same information. You're going to see in the example that I show, it says 3 signatures required. It's now only 2 signatures required. So keep that in mind. You need 1 person to attend Grant Management Seminar 1, which is yesterday or today, which is applying for the grant. You need 2 people to be, at least 2 people to be signatories for your grant. And then you need 3 people to attend Grant Management Seminar 2 in the fall if you're awarded grant funding. So I know there's a lot of numbers there. The people who attend 3 should probably be contacts and possibly even signatories, because they're the ones who we're going to come to if there's a problem with any documentation or any issues. So just keep that in mind. But we do have to have somebody who's saying, okay, we're going to pursue this grant. And so the way you do that is the same you've seen with adding involved clubs, adding contacts. You go through your club members, you select the ones who are going to be signing off. You click the double arrow button to move them over to the right side. That means that they're going to be given a notification that they need to come into DACDB and they need to sign for the grant. Then you want to save, and you'll see there's a little green status thing that pops up. that says that these people have been designated signatories for this grant.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Just, Kelly, just to clarify, Kelly says that she learned that as a grant submitter, you need to be listed as a signer. Do we know if that's the case? For sure.
I've never submitted a grant, I'll be honest. So I haven't run into the many issues that sometimes come up. Art, do you know, does the foundation have that as a requirement? Is that in
Kelly, and everybody, you don't specifically need to be, the submitter doesn't need to be the signer. However, it's common sense that you would be, because you'll be the one who knows your way through this system. We always need someone in the club that can assist us when the question comes in, I forget how to sign, or something like that. So someone who's much more familiar with the software, it just makes sense that you're one of the signatories. Now, the other aspect to this, Jonathan used an example here of putting 3 people, and we used to require 3 signatures. Now we need 2. List 4, 5, 6 people that can sign off on this grant, because the faster you make these signatures happen, the faster this moves through the process. And that includes getting you paid. So, you know, if we go, well, you haven't signed the grant yet, or you haven't signed off on the report yet. Well, so-and-so is not around. Get us 2 out of however many you've got listed.
Yeah.
Or just to clarify, not all of the signers need to sign the grant?
That is correct.
Yeah, thanks.
They're just authorized to sign.
Authorized to sign, but it takes a specific number this coming year, which will be 2.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay, so next step, you want to go back to your grant details process. You want to collect the signature. So you click the button in the right-hand corner next to save, and that will confirm that you're ready to collect signatures, so that this becomes an approved grant, or I'm sorry, not an approved grant, because it becomes a live grant. You've gone through and done all the documentation you have to do. You have people lined up, you have your contacts, you have your basic documents. Boom, your grant is now ready to be signed off for by members of the club who are going to take responsibility for it. So just like Art said, it's now down to 2, even though there's 3 in this example. You can have more than 2. We encourage more than 2, but 2's the required amount.
Jonathan, before you go off the screen, I
Yep.
want to add one point.
Sure.
In the conflict of interest document, it asks for the grant number. And I believe that is the ID on the top line.
Yeah,
I think we'll find that.
this one right here.
Yep.
Does everybody see that okay? Do I need to zoom in?
So Jonathan, you're saying that that is the, okay, ID number. Okay, got you.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to point out too, in the activity log and the signature log, this is a good way for you to see kind of how your grant's progressed. If you're the submitter of the grant, or you're a signatory, or you're a contact, or just involved in some way, this is open to any member of your club to see. We have total transparency when things have been done, and it can help if there's something that's being waited for. You can see kind of where the issue is. When the notification goes out to the people who are signing for the grant, they need to go into the grants module and select the grant in order to sign. They have to be completed before proceeding. So that needs to be done, because like Art said, the faster you get that done, the faster it can be submitted to the foundation for funding. So now you see in club, in my club, you have this district grant seminar sample grant. When you've gotten to this stage, you'll see the grant that you've entered, and you're not going to mess it up. So if there's any issues, you can always go back in and adjust things. The amounts are the amounts, but as far as and what you are asking for and what you're planning to do is what it is. But if you have something that comes up or some issues that you run into, the biggest, most important thing you can do is reach out first. Just say, hey, this is a challenge we're running into. You have a team that is here to help you be successful. This is all of our money, and so don't be afraid to ask for help. That's my responsibility. That will be Tim's next year. You know, and we're here to help. That's why we're in Rotary. If you need additional information, though, there are some videos on grants that are made by DACDB on the left side, so you can click on those and watch those. There's a lot of information out there. Before I move into the real world example, because it looks like we've got about 10, 15 more minutes. I want to make sure to answer any questions. 12 minutes, okay. Back to expenses. When is modification used? So the first thing you do if you run into, we typically can't increase your grant amount. But, you know, so I don't know, Kelly, if you're asking whether it's, you have an increased expense or you have a decreased expense. She asked, back to expenses, when is modification used? So first thing you do is you let us know, hey, this has come up. It's a real issue. We're going to be incurring more money. Chances are what'll have to happen is you'll have to find that money, you know, because there's only so much money that is in the DDF. Once that's gone, it's gone. That said, from time to time, there's some grants that go upside down. And so that's why we always encourage people to submit grant requests. We just don't expect that anybody's going to go in with a plan for failure. So all I can say, first thing first, make sure you communicate.
Kelly, if I can be a little more specific, you can modify a grant until we meet and award the grants. You just ask us if we can revert your grant to a draft. Once the grant has been submitted, and once the committee has met and you get an award letter, that's it. You're locked in. You can spend less and we will give you less. You can spend more if it's coming out of your pocket. Your grant amount will not change.
My question actually related to a recent grant that we put in, and I don't think I filled out the expense part. I put in what the income and the grant amount need, but it's all for one item. So I don't think I actually even filled in the expense part, but it would be that amount.
Okay,
And
I'll
so
take a look at that.
do I need to go in and modify that?
You cannot get in there and modify that at this point. I will take a look at that and I will get back to you.
Thank you.
Cool. Sorry, I misunderstood. So I know that we're down to about 10 minutes. So I'm going to kind of go through this pretty quick. It's mainly just showing the result of an entry. So this is an example of St. Francis House Playground. This is where the description came from the application. You'll notice they talked about, I mean, it's a description, what this organization's doing, why they're doing it. So it's who, what, when, where, how, period. You want to be really straightforward. You want to imagine they don't know anything about the place and just get to it. You can download a PDF of your grant once it's in by clicking the download PDF button. You didn't see that previously. In this example, you've got your lead club. You've got, along with the other clubs, you also have your contacts. You then have your funding down below, which is 50% or less of the project. You've got all your income sources along with when they were entered or when they were modified. As you keep going down, you've got all your line items of expenses. You want to make sure every single one of those is backed up by a receipt. So if you're putting it in there, make sure you've got the documentation for it. And then at the bottom, I didn't point this out yesterday, they ended up doing better than they were expecting. So they had a surplus of $270. So the system will calculate that automatically. Down in the documents, it shows, you know, all of the documents involved. Even one of the things I'd even encourage you, avoid using ampersands. Try to stick to just letters and numbers in your naming. as a general rule. And then photos, take photos. These are before photos of the playground there, of the area they're doing the playground. These are the during photos of them assembling it. And this is the signage, less than $1,000 bucks, looks like a banner. And then this is the ribbon cutting after. It's really good way to tell the story of Rotary and what we're doing in our communities. So key takeaways, your application, it needs to be a Rotary project. We're not just passing through money to people. I can give you more detail on that if you'd like. Funding is for, this is DDF is for one-time episodic projects. It's not for something that's an operational fund. It's not something that's ongoing. They're going to have to come back and get more money year after year. You're trying to make a difference that has an impact, that's measurable, and period. That's what district grants are about. It has to adhere to the MOU, terms and conditions, and COIs. Don't be afraid to disclose a conflict of interest. A conflict of interest does not necessarily disqualify your club from having the grant, but we have to know about it. If we don't know about it, it can cause real problems. So make sure you disclose any COI. If somebody in your club is thinking, oh, maybe I'm on this board and that might be a problem, it's probably a COI, but it's not necessarily disqualifying. Add it to the COI. Make sure you've got documentation of it. All the application reporting's done through DAC-DV, so there's no other paper needed. It's 50% or less of the project, which I think we talked about. If your project, oh yeah, 3 members attend Grant Seminar 2. I kind of alluded to that. This is Grant Seminar 1. This is the submission. Grant Seminar 2 is the after you've received the award. Don't start your project or spend any money until you get approval to proceed. Otherwise, you can't be reimbursed for that expense. That's really important. So make sure you wait till you have approval to proceed, not approval that your grants, that you're going to get funding. You're going to need to wait until you get approval to proceed with your project. So that's different. You'll get an award letter, but you won't be given the authorization to start yet. And that usually, you'll see in the timing, that's usually July, August. Actually, no, it's June. And then usually around July, August is when the foundation goes through all this stuff. Best projects deliver a lot of impact for the budget. Have a dedicated bank account. Put in your application now. Even though we've extended it to May 15th, put it in today. Start on your application today. Just because you don't have all your information together yet doesn't mean you can't get the process started, but make sure you've got everything by May 15th. Important dates. May, after May 15th, Share Committee is going to be meeting. They're going to be going through and evaluating all of the applications. They're going to be playing Solomon and deciding where the money is going to go. Making sure that if there's any missing documentation that gets asked for. Then we're going to be ranking them and approving the amounts. That's not when you begin your project. That's not when you spend money. Then July to August, we review the awards and we get preliminary documentation that you're going to get money, but we haven't gotten it yet. So don't start. Sometime between August and September, we will get notification from the Rotary Foundation. And once we get that, then we'll give you the heads up and say, get started. So you should be shovel ready beginning in the new Rotary year, but just don't do anything until you get the heads up. And obviously, if it's a project that's going to happen towards the end of the Rotary year, make sure that you're done by the end of March. It can't go into April, or again, you're not going to get reimbursement for that. Your final report has to be before April 1st. So I was Jonathan Fleeter. Tim O'Donnell's the handsome gentleman on the right side. These are our emails. These are our phone numbers. You can download a PDF of this presentation at this link, and I will copy it. I think I can copy that. I might have to do it on the PowerPoint side. Are there any questions that have come up?
There are not, and I know we are kind of out of time, but I know Art wanted to talk about the COVID grant that we're offering right now. So if there aren't any questions, we can open it up
Okay.
for discussion
So
on
just a
that.
couple of things to piggyback on what Jonathan has said. Yes, you do have to sign a conflict of interest for every grant you do because you're working with different organizations. A single memorandum of understanding will work for the entire year. It has to be uploaded on each grant that you might submit. Jonathan mentioned in-kind donations. Please reference them. Please reference them in the explanation of your project, but they cannot count for matching funds. Do not incorporate them into the budget or your income line items. It'd be fabulous if a contractor is going to contribute $10,000 worth of work. We're not going to match that $10,000 with a grant. COVID grants. Each of your club presidents received an email notification with some specifics on it regarding COVID grants. COVID grants are going to be able to be executed prior to the normal timeline that Jonathan outlined. Please get with your president or your president-elect, whoever got it in your club, review that list. If you have questions and would like to execute a COVID grant, get with us. Understand that on the COVID grants, you get one bite at the apple. If you're a lead club, you can apply for up to $2,000. If you're going to partner with that lead club, that's can afford you the possibility to get an additional $1,000. If your club partners with somebody, or if your club is the lead, that's the one COVID grant they get to participate in. So you can't be the lead club on one and join another club so that you can get $1,000 onto theirs. We have $65,000. We have 63 clubs. Not too difficult to do the math, right? We're not all going to get $2,000 each. It really is that simple. We may have to shorten up the awards on some of the grant applications that we get. They are due by May 15th. There is a radio button, as you saw, on the application for COVID. Click that radio button and then click the subsequent button that you're going to impact with your project. It could be feeding, it could be medical, it could be whatever, but click both of those in order to tell us what you're doing. That COVID radio button enables us to know that that is a grant that's eligible for near immediate execution. Please be aware, if you do a COVID grant, you will not get refunded until the fall of next year. We don't have the money yet. The Rotary Foundation has made an extraordinary and exceptional move on this and authorized to spend money we don't have yet. But we don't have it, therefore we can't reimburse you. So if you do a $4,000 project and are assuming you're going to get, or have been granted a $2,000 district grant, COVID related, you're not going to get that $2,000 until the fall. So you got to be able to execute that $4,000 project in its entirety and carry the entirety of the cost until we get a chance to reimburse you.
So Art, just to clarify, you mean next Rotary year, not 2021 for reimbursement?
I don't know what that means, Rich.
Yeah, fall. So 2020, 2021 is the next grant cycle. So right now we're in 2019, 2020. So if your grant gets approved and to start in June or May, we're still not in the next Rotary year yet. So we're going to be getting the block grant from the Rotary Foundation this fall, and you would be reimbursed this fall.
Okay. No, next fall.
Correct, the 2020.
Okay.
Well, that is the next fall. So
Yeah.
potato. So
Yeah.
we're going to.
It's also not next year, Art.
around July or
That-
August in order to reimburse it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking also.
It's also not next year, Art. So just trying to clarify it. So there's no
Next
confusion.
Rotary year.
Yeah, next. Yeah. Quick question. For the COVID grant approval, since it's not following the traditional timeline for approvals in the fall, when, if we submit, if the Barton Trail submits a COVID grant, when do we hear that has been approved?
Shortly after May 15th.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And Art, they cannot begin to spend money now. They have to wait until approval, or can they start to
It's the
spend
same.
money?
Until you get the approval letter from, it'll be signed by myself, Jeanette, Jonathan, and Tim. And for those of you that were not on the call yesterday to understand, I'm the District Rotary Foundation until July 1st. My 3 years will have completed. Jeanette is my mini-me. She's replacing me. And Tim is Jonathan's mini-me. But Jonathan has 1 more year. Tim will be shadowing Jonathan throughout the course of this year. And that's why all of us will be signatories to your award letter.
Mhm.
Okay, any other questions? Art, do you have any more you want to talk about with the COVID or anything else to go over?
One other thing on the income, when it comes to these district grants, last year we had some unusual funding
Mhm.
created, and it will not be acceptable. It was not acceptable then. We didn't catch it now until it was audited. But a club, several clubs working with various entities, let's just use that same number. Let's say it's a $4,000 project. They're getting a $2,000 grant, club funding of $2,000. They got a check from the organization they were going to assist for $2,000, and then turned around and paid the organization the $4,000 for the supplies, and then got reimbursed by us for the other $2,000. So in essence, the club was out zero funding. That doesn't fly. When you list club funding on that funding line item, it's club money. If you've got money coming from a different organization, put it as a separate line item and disclose it. Anything that's disclosed is generally going to end up acceptable, or we're going to tell you how to make it acceptable, or perhaps that it isn't. But non-disclosure is a bad, bad, bad thing.
Mhm.
In the same way that Jonathan was referencing conflict of interest, if you have a member of your club that's on the board of the nonprofit you're assisting, disclose it. It doesn't mean that it's going to get it disqualified unless our money is going to pay the salary of that board member. That's a different conversation, right? But it has to be disclosed. If you ask yourself a question and you say, is this a conflict of interest? And if there's any hesitation or you have to think about it, it's a conflict of interest. Just list it that way. We've never, to my recollection, disqualified a grant for a non-disclosure. I'm sorry, for a disclosure of a potential conflict of interest. However, should a conflict be discovered in the process after the grant is rolling, it could lead to you not getting the funding that you think you're going to get. So this is everything being above board. It's 4-way test. It's very simple. And by the way, the people that make the decisions for these grants, it's the share committee, which is representatives from 5 of our 63 clubs who earned that position, as well as Jonathan and some district leadership. These decisions are not made by district leadership. I don't get a vote. Jeanette doesn't get a vote. We moderate that process. So this is decided on by your fellow Rotarians in your district. It's always been that way. We've considered ourselves a district that is bottom up, not top down, and that's just one more piece of that. Did that create any questions, or did it answer some, I hope?
Art, I actually have a question for you on the conflicts. We've attached our COI, which is just the signed form, but I'm curious, and we have in our application.
It was disclosed, Kelly.
That's what we consider kind of a conflict of interest. Do I have to specifically name them in the application, or should I attach in the documents who are the board members?
Yeah, it should be added. It was disclosed. We did discuss it, but it should be added. Yes.
I'll add it. Thank you.
Very good. Anybody else?
Okay, Tim, do you have everybody recorded on here? You know who everybody is that has participated on the call?
You can keep going. I'm just going to do my little thing here to get our
Okay.
gift certificate.
Yeah. If everyone has commented at least once in the chat session, I do, and they changed their name and put their club number in their club name in their name as well.
Okay, I think we were missing some when I went back and scrolled through. So to get credit for this call, as a reminder, you need to have your club name, Jewel, Joe,
Yeah,
Joni, I know who you are.
and I can look up some of them, but it saves me a lot of time if I don't have to look up every single person in DACDB. So changing, and there's one person that
Sandra Wilson,
doesn't
Mary
have their name on there, so
Stutz,
I don't know who they are.
Okay,
Yeah, just please add your club name to your name, or list your name and your club in the chat window. That way we can give you credit.
Oh, yeah, we're okay right now. Everyone's good except for one person. I'll try to reach out to them.
all righty, thank you.
With 1 minute to spare.
Jonathan, and this material will be posted on DACDB effective when?
It's already there.
Okay.
If you scroll up in the chat window at 12:20, there's a link, dacdb.com/rotary/accounts/6970/downloads/52499/DGP 2020-0424-25.pdf. So if you copy that part of the chat into your browser, it'll start you downloading a PDF.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
All righty.
Thank you.
I think that's it. District Governor-elect Rich, is there anything you want to say?
I just appreciate you all. I think this is really important to go through this training and know what we're doing and do it right. So thank you to all those involved on the foundation team, and for everybody to sit in and learn about it. I encourage us all to go forth and do good things, right?
Amen.
All righty.
Keep those cards and letters coming and get those applications in.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody have a safe and healthy weekend, and enjoy some time with your family. I think I've got a visitor here, so.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.